All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being on today for our PLM webinar series, where we're going to look at change management with Windchill. My name is Rob Romanowski. I'm the Director of Sales Operations with 3HPI, and leading our presentation, overview, and a brief demo is Paul Dye, a Solutions Consultant with PTC's Virtual Center of Excellence. And Paul does a great job with these webinars and demos, not just for us, but also for customers. They're just, tremendous, very helpful, very knowledgeable. So, Paul, thank you for taking the time to help us today. And one of the things that I'm excited about regarding change management, and Paul will dig a little deeper on this, is basically a lot of companies need help with associativity. Meaning that a change made anywhere is going to be a change made everywhere. And Windchill gives you that type of leverage and power to be able to make automatic updates with changes. So changes can be made to the bill of materials, can be made to drawings, can be made to approved vendor lists, to a tool path if you make a change within the CAD system. So basically, with Windchill, you can determine when that something's changed, when it gets approved, that it moves forward, what other items change, and maybe what doesn't change. It's all flexible regarding on what your company needs. So we got a great turnout for this webinar. I'm very excited about it. And Paul, without further ado, it's all yours, my friend.
Yeah, thank you, Rob, for having me on. Thank everybody else for jumping on as well. So, yeah, this is definitely an important topic from within Windchill. This is something that a lot of companies need, right? It's like Rob mentioned, the associativity from within your tool and within your systems for making sure that changes that are made are being implemented in the correct places and that everything's getting pushed down the line. And it's also for about understanding traceability, right? Whenever a change happens, you really want to understand exactly all the different places that are affected, and looking back at it, making sure that you can, at any point later on down the road, understand what's been done and everybody is getting access into that needs it. All right, so I'll go ahead just first and foremost and start by looking at some of the different challenges that a lot of customers face today that really starts with dealing with slow and inefficient change processes. It really stems from the fact that it's pretty difficult to make sure that you're getting all the right information that's required for a change, right? And it's not just talking about raw CAD data here. You need to have awareness of why you're making a change, what needs to be changed, any input from other stakeholders in the entire design process. They need to be able to see that as well. And what also happens is that it can be difficult to understand the status of a change as well. An example of this is you have your own manual change process that might be set up from within a business. Maybe you handle it through emails or email change or some other type of method. What you really don't have is visibility. It's really tough to understand when one of your change processes gets stuck, or one way that could happen is what if somebody goes on vacation for 2 weeks and they're responsible for approving something in the change process or executing a change or doing work on it, then you don't know that's why it's stuck. You don't know to change that process maybe over to another person up the chain who can also do that approval, and then you can keep moving along with that process. So without that type of visibility, you really can't make any of those alterations. And something else is that our ERP or MES systems are out of sync with your engineering teams. And whenever that happens, you're not really taking into account all the different moving pieces that are required in order to take your products from the digital world of design and actually get them out into physical reality. And that's the type of slowdown that we can't really afford, right? So we have solutions around this, and it's really all here from within our change management in Windchill. It's a way for you to organize your change process and make sure that everyone has the information that they need in order to carry that out. And it helps to really automate handling these types of workflows that you're going to be going through. So taking a look at some of the main capabilities that it's going to provide for us. First of all, this is an example of a workflow from within Windchill. We have out-of-the-box workflows that are already set up for you, but if you want to have your own cases or your own needs, they're completely tailorable and scalable for you as well. So if you have other branches that you want to add on to that or any other checks, you can get that as well. You're also given that visibility as well to understand what's happening. So for example, here on screen, you can see that, yes, we do have some change for this part, and this icon tells you that there's a change in that process as well. tells us the issues that have been tied to that, which are maybe in this case, and I'll go through and show what this really looks like, but it'll be around our brake pads. If they're overheating, it's going to tell us that a change request has been requested for that reason, right? And then we're actually going to be carrying out a change notice in order to address those issues. And like I mentioned, full traceability into this. It's very easy to see what has happened, where the work has been done. It's also very important for customers where that traceability is a requirement. People like MedDev or FA&D really need to be able to see that as well. And you have a couple different change objects that do this, and they're all related to one another. You could do this for a couple different processes. You could do a fast, which is more of a streamlined, quick process, or you could have a full change review board type process. So first of all, you have problem reports here. These can be put into Windchill to let designers know that there are some issues or problems that have been reported for that particular design or product, which is optional, right? The deviation or waiver, that's something else that's also optional. And it's a temporary change to a process or a product. And then the change request is where you now are officially requesting these changes and gathering information on what kind of resources what it would take to do that, right? But this is the point where there might be no resources that have been currently assigned to do it. And the change notice is saying, okay, we're now going to be committing people and resources to make that change happen. And whenever you finish that, you close out the change request. And if there were any problem reports tied to it, you'd be able to close that out as well to say that you've addressed those things from that point onwards. Right, so it's enough to talk about it. I do want to actually go through and really walk through on a low level of what that process looks like, what it looks like to do this type of change management from within Windchill. If you have any questions throughout that or anything that I go through and show, feel free to drop those in the Q&A, and we can definitely touch on those either throughout or towards the end of the demonstration here. So let's go ahead and switch over here into our Windchill environment, and we can go ahead and get started here. So I'm going to be walking through the change management process here from within Windchill and really look at what different steps are going to be involved in this and see exactly how we're really looking to give you more traceability. So we'll go ahead and navigate over into our specific product known as our Synergy Top Level Pro Car. And we can dig into the product structure here a bit to open up a specific component that might have a change out against it currently. Here we can go ahead and select on the brake assembly. See that within the visualization right there on the right-hand side, you can view the information on it. And what you'll notice is that we have an indicator in the middle bar there, right next to the name. Kind of looks like a red triangle. It's going to tell you that this is a delta, saying that there's a change against it currently. So the users that are working with this are always made aware of this types of status indicators from within the system. And you also notice that there's a go to latest button, letting you know that there's currently another more up-to-date version of this brake assembly. What you're looking at is not the most up-to-date. All right, so quick look there. And if we go ahead and navigate into our changes tab, you'll notice that we have access to the changes at a very granular level. There's a couple other ways that we have to access changes in more of a holistic dashboard type of level. But from within here, if you look at our issues and variances, we have those. We have our change requests as well as our change notices. The issues and variances are the problem reports from within Windchill. The change requests as well as the change notices are all different change object types that are all managed directly from within Windchill. And you'll notice that they're all tied together. They're all appearing on the same screen for this particular part. If there were to be multiple changes open for this brake assembly or for this specific part or component, you would see that all rolled up here for that really full digital traceability for all the changes that are happening within the system. Right, if we go ahead here into our problem report, you'll notice that we have some information that's attached to this problem report. Specifically, we have a PDF. We also have a link to an external source for the quality solutions. So if any users need to see this information, it's readily accessible to those users that need to view that attached information. We also have some associated annotations. This is coming in directly from Creo View. That's something that the enterprise users can take full advantage of to be able to view the models, to make red lines or markups on 3D representations of the CAD models. So this is allowing users to gain really valuable insight in the idea that you can take something that would normally just be text on a screen and you can see it more so in a 3D light rather than just having to view it from within Windchill. You can see it, you can rotate it, you can view it in different orientations or fashions so that the users can get more information much faster and much more clearly to make those different decisions. So just a quick look there. Don't want to spend too much time in Creo View here. Let's go ahead back over into our Windchill environment and take a look over at the affected end items. So the affected end items are end items that are really just going to be any sellable good. So in this case here, we have our front wheel assembly. That's something that would ultimately be sellable by this company. And then we also have our associated process objects and reference objects. So that's going to be your change request as well as your change notice all linked together so that the users can quickly navigate back and forth to understand really what's going on for this particular change. All right, so now we could take a look at the change request. And really, again, a lot of the same information we have our annotations, our affected objects, end items. It's all going to be there, but this is a different type of change object from within the system. The change request is really where you're going to understand what change impacts are, so you can go through and start to understand how you might want to go about solving that or fixing that change for the future. Right, in this case here, we have another Creo View annotation. Look at that. And letting us know that we want to redesign this brake disc so that it's going to reduce the heat generation. This is a planned approach for solving this specific issue that's happening. So now that we have that information, we can see all that as we move forward. And one thing I also want to mention is that all the changes that we have here, these were already created from the system just for the sake of the demonstration, right? A lot of these screens that you would normally go through in order to create these changes, they're all going to be fairly similar, whether it's for a problem report, a change request, or a change notice. And really what we're looking at here and what you're seeing is the output of that information that was filled out in those different screens, right? So that's something that we can go through and work with here and take forward. So let's go ahead and keep moving on here. So a lot of these screens that you normally go through here have already gone through and been laid out. So typically the first order of business is once you have the problem report filled out, you're really going to define the problem, right? What's actually going to be happening here? Is it something that's coming from the customer end? Is it something that's going to be coming from a vendor, supplier, right? We want to understand exactly where this is going to be coming from. Right, so then from here, we have our change request, which is where you're going to understand the change impact and how you're going to solve this specific issue. And then we have our change notice, which is what we'll be going through in just a moment. And I'll speak a little bit more about whenever we get to that portion of the demonstration. All right, so we have our pre-filled out affected objects. And one thing I want to point out is that you have different object types. We have the WT parts, which are going to be kind of your bill of material items. We have some different items from within there as well, like SolidWorks assemblies, Creo parts, Creo assemblies, all within that specific table of your affected objects. So Windchill really isn't biased whenever it comes to what type of objects that you're changing from within the system. And now if we go here into our change notice, this is going to be the main object that we want to go through and look at. So now companies don't have to go directly through each of these steps. So each of these change objects, they can go directly to a change notice if they wanted to. So we're not really handcuffing anybody, right? It's a matter of how you want to run your business, how you want to have these processes work in your overall landscape. You can really set that up as you want to. And here we can take a look at the process that this change notice is going to follow. Right, so these are going to be the automated workflows that are going to be built into the Windchill system, but these are, again, configured by the end users or the end customers based off of what their process is going to look like. This is something that's based off of what's called a CM2 change process. It's a standard out in the industry today, but as you can see, you can go through if you wanted to and drag and drop the arrows, you can move the blocks around depending on how the users or how the companies want to configure your business, right? You can go through and change around those workflows for whatever you need. It's really more of an administrative type of screen. So not all the users in Windchill would actually want to see this, right? But we just want to go through here and show this as part of the demonstration, right? You have these automatic workflows that Windchill gives you out of the box, right? But these can easily be configured to your liking and whatever you want to go through and do there. So anything that's in gray, it's a step that's already been completed. And where we're at now is currently this green box. This is where the process currently sits. And then anything with an icon of two faces is going to be where a human intervention would be required in order to move that along in the process. All right, so I just wanted to take a quick look there. So we see in the process that really this change notice is going to follow. Taking a look at some of the details, that's going to be fairly similar to that of a change request as well as a problem report. And now here we have our implementation plan. So this is where the change notice really differs from the other two change objects. This is where we're going to divvy out the tasks for the different end users to go ahead and complete in order to complete this change. Right, in this case here, we have 3 different tasks that are being asked of one user. It's going to be Dave, the design engineer, who's been assigned each of these different tasks. You'll see the sequence on the far right. It's 1, 2, and 3. And 1 and 2 have already been resolved, which is good. And those have been completed. The updating of the bill of materials for the brake assembly has not been done, right? So if we want to go into updating the CAD model, which we can see exactly what has been done here. So we have our affected and resulting objects, and you'll notice that the resulting objects are just affected objects, but they're not being revised. They're being revised to a new version here. So starting with B1 and B2, and here we can directly compare the differences between those, between the resulting and the affected object. And go ahead and take a look at that. And you'll notice that we have our A.8 brake assembly for our CAD design. And on the later version, the B.1 version, we also have our brake assembly, but it's now being revised. So just a quick look there at some of the comparison that we can do. So now that we have that information readily available to us, what we could do is take a look at the assembly from right within Creo Parametric, right? So we can go ahead and take a look at that here. So just open that up in Creo. So here we have our brake assembly, and in this case, the change has already been done, right? This is going to be that B.1 version of it, and you'll see that there's been a pattern of holes added onto that brake disc, so that'll dissipate a lot of the heat that really occurs on the braking. So just a quick look at the actual change that was made over in our 3D design tool, being Creo. If you go back over here into our homepage, you'll see that as Dave, the design engineer, we have a complete change notice task. This is being asked of us as the person in the implementation plan to complete this change task and go ahead and make note of that over in the Windchill system once you're done with that. All right, so here we can open up the task assistant also whenever we're working here. This is making sure that we're always on task. We're able to get back to the information very quickly if we need to. So that's always going to be something that we can reference there while we're working too. All right, so if we go into the change task itself, we can see exactly who is assigned to what's affecting and resulting. So currently, in this case, it's updating the bill of materials. So we have our manufacturing view of the bill of materials for the brake assembly. You can take a look at what that looks like. Notice that in the visualization, there's actually no holes or showed pattern of the holes in that case. So what we need to do is go ahead and update that. So here we can open up in the manufacturing associative part structure browser. And in this case here, we can see on the left-hand side, we have a visualization already opened up. We have that brake disc with the pattern of holes. And then over on the right-hand side, we don't have that. So what we need to do is we need to reconcile those changes and make sure that we're updating the equivalency links between those two. And in this case here, you'll notice that there's a clock item on the brake disc on the left-hand side and on the latest design. So on the right-hand side, you have the manufacturing view. You also have that clock symbol. It's essentially just telling us that currently that there's an equivalent object on either side, but they're not pointing to the latest version of each other. So what we need to do is update that from within the system so that the manufacturing view is going to be reconciled and pointing to the latest information in this case. So here, what we'll do is just go ahead and update the equivalence between the two. In that case, you'll see that it checks out the information and now updates in the visualization right there on the right-hand side. And then from there, we can check in that information as we've updated it. And now this will apply to the manufacturing view, and they'll be in the know of exactly what has changed on the upstream design view. All right, so that's good there. Now we can go ahead and complete the change notice task because we've gone in and updated that bill of materials. We can go ahead, if we needed to, we could add in some comments there as needed. And I also want to point out that you can include here e-signatures within the change workflow so that you can have a record of the people signing off on the changes before they've been done. And in this case here, it's not enabled, but that's just a preference that you could enable right from within your Windchill preferences as well. So in our case here, let's go ahead and complete that task. And what I'm going to do now is sign in under a different user. So this is going to be Pat, the product manager, who's going to be reviewing the information that Dave has gone through and completed. And what you'll notice is that in this task, Pat has the reviewing of the change activity. And if you look at the task completion, we can go in and say that we've reviewed the information as the product manager. In this case, they've gone and seen, okay, right, here's the difference between the bill of materials that's been changed and it's been done properly. So we can go ahead and add that into the task completion. And we can go ahead and complete that. And now that'll queue off the next portion of the workflow, the automated workflow, saying that we have to audit that change notice next. So in this case here, what we could do from this point is see the impacts of that change notice. And we can open up the task assistant. This is again going to help us keep on track. So what we can do from here is that we can see the brake assembly. And in this case here, we have the non-latest version. But if we go to the latest, we can actually see exactly where we're at. And you'll notice that there are some components that are in work. Most of them have been released. And we're on the B1 or B.1 version with an icon saying that there are resulting changes that are going to be from within the system. And then under the changes tab, we have resulting from change notices. In this case, we can see that we have that information under our change notice. So we can go ahead and take a look at what that really entails. So again, what we have here is our attribute information, but now we want to take a look at the implementation plan. So all three of these have now been resolved, right? We can see that very quickly, and we can see that we have our affected and resulting objects down here. We have our new revisions here. And in this case, we can set the effectivity so that it's going to essentially become effective in the system at a certain date or time, right? So based off of that date that's being selected, essentially what we're going to see is that the information then will be populated into the system and only effective after that date. Just go ahead and get that entered in there. And we can change exactly the times that we want all of those to go through here. All right, so now that the effectivity has been set for the different parts, we can go in and say we want to set the state for each of these. Most of them are going to be released. We can go ahead and set all of them now to release so that when this has gone through everything, it's going to be released back into the system. And finally, if we go back into the task itself, we can go to the task completion and say that we've gone through and audited the change notice itself, right? And as we complete the task, we can go ahead and let that finish up. We can go also into our recently accessed brake assembly. Let's go ahead into there now. And you'll notice up in the upper right-hand corner that it's released. We have the holes from within the brake disc itself. And now what we want to do is we want to be able to compare the baseline before we went through the change, and we want to compare it to the latest version with that change. So in this case here, we have our A.9 over on the left-hand side, and then B.1, the current version, over on the right-hand side. And you'll see the brake disc is really the main difference is the fact that there's no holes over on the A.9 version, and then you can see the updates over there on B.1. So that's really what the change management module from within Windchill really looks like. It's making sure that you have that full traceability of the information throughout your system and really allowing you to quickly and effectively relate all that information together. So again, if there's any questions, feel free to drop those in. And I really just want to wrap up by kind of going back through and speaking on what really is the main value of being able to do this from within Windchill. Right. So first of all, change management really just allows you to make faster and more accurate responses to these type of internal or external market pressures, right? So it allows you to be more reactive to those, do things faster. It also is going to make your change process very efficient, right? Everybody who's involved in the process has the awareness of what they need to do as they've been tasked to do it in Windchill. And also for your change managers, right? They now have better visibility into what's going on. They can make the decision if they need to reroute some of those efforts in the change process or if everything is running as planned. And because you now have all that information in one place, the engineer carrying out the actual design change, they have all the annotations, they have calculations, any documentation, requirements, safety measures, whatever it is, everything that they need to take into account is in that first step. If you don't have that information, you're either wasting time trying to gather it, or engineers and designers are going to make assumptions on what is actually required and what they need to meet. And if those assumptions go wrong, right, in best case, it's going to be caught by the auditors who are going to say, hey, we need to redo this. And then you're stuck looping that back and wasting time. Or in the worst case, those designs without that extra information being taken into account, they get pushed through and now you have a dysfunctional product released out into the marketplace. And that's definitely something that we look to avoid. And that's really something that the change process is going to help us with. Right, so that's the idea. It's change management, just making your process more efficient, more accurate, and at the end of the day, easier to manage. So with that, take any questions that we have, or if not, pass it over to you, Rob.
It's keeping everybody in the loop. It's giving, like you said earlier, visibility, traceability, who made what change, when the changes were made. It's basically being able to share all your intellectual property across the enterprise and, managing those updates and changes to help become more productive. If you have any more questions, if you want to have a more detailed conversation regarding Windchill or change management, or even if you want to discuss a digital thread strategy, we're working with several clients who are looking to, of different sizes, that are looking to implement a digital thread strategy. You can reply to the email that I sent you regarding this webinar. Any replies will come to me directly because the email came from me. But also you can email us at info@3hti.com. And also in those emails is my contact information, so feel free to give me a call. So Paul, thank you once again for a great overview and demo. And, once again, you're always very knowledgeable, very helpful, and I appreciate it. And want to thank everybody for being on, and we'll see you for our next PLM webinar in a couple weeks. And tomorrow we're having our Creo Simulate webinar for Creo. So maybe we'll see some of you on there as well. Thanks, everybody. Take care.